Unit 1, Lesson 8, Latin American Revolutions. This is a map showing you the European empires and colonial territories at the end of the 17th century. This chart shows a bit of the new ideas that were brewing in Europe between the 16th and 18th century, beginning with the spirit of Renaissance through the scientific revolution and all the way down to the American, French, and Latin American political revolutions. These are the 9 causes of the Latin American revolutions, beginning with the Enlightenment ideas and the writings of John Locke, Voltaire, and Jean Roch Rousseau, Thomas Jefferson, and Thomas Paine. The Creole discontent at being left out of government jobs and trade concessions, the inspiration of the American and French revolutions, the preoccupation of Spanish and Portuguese forces in fighting against the French in the Napoleonic Wars, mercantilism enriching the mother country at the expense of the colony, the fluctuating power of the Catholic Church, how the wealth and power were unequally distributed in colonial powers, the Native Americans who wanted their land back from the Spanish, and the Native Americans and slaves who wanted, sought, and fought for freedom. Aided by the Enlightenment ideas and the laws of nature or natural laws that govern natural science and human society. These ideas gave people rights of life, liberty, and property, and the essence of trying to make fair societies based on reason. Overall, this challenged the theory of divine right and of monarchies, and with it, colonies. This chart shows the 5 different sort of classifications of peoples in Latin America at the turn of the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. At the top were Peninsulares. These were Spaniards born in Spain. Just beneath them were Creoles. These were people who were born in New Spain or one of the Spanish colonies to Peninsulares or Spanish parents. Beneath them were Mestizos. These are people born of Spanish and Native American or Indian parents. So this would be one parent from a Peninsulary or a Creole descent, and then one of the Native American parents mixing together to have a mestizo. Below them were Native American Indians. These were like Aboriginal individuals, people who were native to North, Central, and South America. And then beneath them, at the bottom of the pyramid, were slaves, enslaved persons brought from Africa and the Caribbean against their will. So this sense of hierarchy fueled a massive discontent among the people. Since mestizos hoped to move up in society, and Creoles felt that they actually built the colonies and wanted to rule them, they didn't understand why these peninsulares coming over from Spain of pure Spanish blood were able to overrule all the decisions and basically have all the power in the Spanish colonies. Latin American countries, including Haiti, took their inspiration from the American and French revolutions, as their successful revolutions in North America and France served as a blueprint for their own individual revolutions. During the reign of Napoleon, he waged armed conflict throughout Spain and Portugal, so much so that the Portuguese army and the Spanish army were busy fighting out and fighting back Napoleon's armies. It was this preoccupation and the fighting in the Napoleonic Wars that left the colonies to their own devices. So the burgeoning governments and revolutionaries in Latin America were able to not only use Napoleon's efforts as a blueprint and a model for their own rebellions, but they were able to use it as a diversion as a source of diversion to keep the governments of Spain and Portugal occupied while they built their revolutions from the ground up. This map shows the dates and the locations of the individual revolutions of Latin American countries, beginning with Haiti in 1804, shown here next to Cuba, and going all the way to Uruguay in 1828. You can see the near dozen individual Latin American countries that fought and gained their independence from the colonial power in this 25-year period. Beginning with the Haitian Revolution in 1804, Haiti was led by former slave turned Army General Toussaint Louverture, who led a revolution in Haiti by freeing slaves and helping guide them towards political and economic freedom. Toussaint would engage in some questionable practices as leader of Haiti, but he was effective in leading this slave revolt, the only major slave revolt in modern history to effectively rid their country of their captors, to expel the colonists and gain true freedom. Toussaint became general of the Haitian army and organized those rebel slaves against the French colonists, driving them out of Haiti in 1803. Toussaint Louverture died in exile in France in 1803. So now that the French were kicked out of Haiti in general, and with the Napoleonic Wars dragging on to an end in Europe, the United States chose the right time to purchase a giant piece of land in North America. This was the Louisiana Purchase, when the United States purchased 830 square miles of French territory from Napoleon. Now, they paid approximately $15 million for this, which was about 4 cents per acre. Napoleon desperately needed the funds to help stave off bankruptcy within France, just as what had happened with King Louis XVI throughout the French Revolution. So the United States, eager to acquire more land, and this land west of the Mississippi River, which would help expand their territory and make them a bigger colonial power themselves. Napoleon, upon completion of the agreement and the sale, stated that this new territory affirms forever the power of the United States, and I have given England a maritime rival who sooner or later will humble her pride. So this was a calculation. Not only did Napoleon and France need the money from the sale of the Louisiana territory, they also wanted to weaken England's naval power and supremacy in the world. This brings us to an overview of the other Latin American revolutions that took place after the initial Haitian Revolution in 1804. And this brings us to Simon Bolivar, who was known as the Liberator. He was from a wealthy Creole family in Venezuela. He had spent time in Europe and the newly independent United States studying the American and French revolutions. Using the inspiration drawn from the Haitian Revolution in 1804, Bolivar organized rebels against Spanish rule between 1808 and 1825. He started in his native Venezuela, then moved on to help Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru. Bolivar was able to unite all of these areas into one unified territory called Gran Colombia under his rule. And his hope was eventually to free and unite all of Latin America as one country under his rule, free of colonial oppressors. It was during this time when Simon Bolivar met Jose de San Martin, leader, revolutionary, and they would work together to help decolonize parts of Latin America. Jose de San Martin was a Creole from Argentina, and he organized the rebels in Argentina against Spanish rule, just as Bolivar did in Venezuela. Between the years of 1812 and 1825, San Martin, starting in Argentina and then moving outwards through Chile, Ecuador, and Peru, he fought with Simon Bolivar and Bernardo O'Higgins, who led Chile to independence, to try to rid each of those countries of Latin America and unite under Bolivar's Gran Colombia plan of a unified Latin America. Between Simon Bolivar coming from the north and Jose de San Martin and Bernardo O'Higgins coming from the south and from the east, these three crossing through the Andes Mountains became the muscle of the Latin American Revolution. This map here will show you the routes highlighted in orange were the campaigns of Simon Bolivar, and the routes and arrows shown in blue were those of Jose de San Martin, with the X's being major battles in Argentina, Chile, Peru, Colombia, Gran Colombia, and Uruguay. A very short period of time throughout the Latin American revolutions, Simon Bolivar's greatest accomplishment, that of a Gran Colombia, was in existence for about a 10 or 11-year period, occupying the area that is now comprised of 8 individual countries. In order to grow the independence movement in Latin America and in South America overall, Bolivar and San Martin encouraged ideas of nationalism. This helped fuel support for the independence movements in each individual nation, but it also led to the splintering of a unified Latin America as each nations like Venezuela and Argentina and Uruguay, Paraguay, Peru, Chile, each nation's citizens became more nationalized for their own country versus all of South America. After uniting the countries of Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador into Gran Colombia, he left to help free the rest of Latin America. Bolivar died a year later with his goal of uniting all of South America unfulfilled. Shown here on the map are the different years that these countries were able to gain true independence from their colonial powers, again beginning with Haiti in 1804, lasting all the way to Uruguay in 1828. And South America's largest country, Brazil, was finally able to free themselves from Portuguese control. During the Napoleonic Wars, the Portuguese royal family escaped Napoleon by fleeing Portugal and coming to Brazil. Royal leader Pedro I set up a new independent kingdom in Brazil in 1821 when his father returned to Portugal, returned to Europe. And Pedro II assumed full power after Pedro I abdicated his throne. This officially severed ties between Portugal and Brazil as a colonial power, and Brazil was independent of its former colonial leader. So by the mid 1820s, revolts created many newly independent nations throughout Latin America. We had Toussaint Louverture in Haiti beginning things in 1804 with the Haitian Revolution, followed by Bolivar, San Martin, and O'Higgins in Paraguay, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Peru, Bolivia, the United Provinces of Central America, and Gran Colombia. But with all of these individual countries gaining freedom and no unifying power, the greatest failure of Simon Bolivar's dream for a united South America happened. That many of these newly independent countries struggled with internal civil wars as competing factions fought for supremacy and dominance within the country. By the 1830s, geographic factors like the continental mountain range, the Andes Mountains, and the Amazon rainforest, plus cultural differences, defeated attempts at unification. The growing independence in Latin America, believe it or not, also increased poverty. As these revolutionary wars that happened up and down the continent, they disrupted trade, destroyed cities and countrysides, and killed thousands of civilians. That greatly impacted the financial prospects and economy of each individual country. And once independence was gained, And the countries like Peru and Bolivia, Colombia, Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, and Venezuela fought off their colonial powers. The internal civil wars within each country also devastated the cities and the countryside and killed thousands more civilians. So by the mid 19th century, most of Spanish America, most of Latin America came under the control of the caudillos. They were like 19th century dictators, basically ruling under military authoritarianism. Most were wealthy Creole aristocrats, and this happened usually immediately following the fight for independence. They posed as reformers with goals to improve the economy and better the lives of the common people, but once they grabbed power, they ruled like authoritarians. They ruled like dictators. And under the control of the caudillos, many overthrew governments and took away basic human rights from their citizens. Some attempted to make improvements, but most just cared about themselves and their families and friends. This is called nepotism. They looked out for their wealthy elite and their family. Power changes under these countries and under these conditions usually occurred at knife point or bayonet point in a term called coup d'etats. This is a violent overthrow of a military leader by the military.